Who was pointing that gun at you?
It was Carly.
While the events on March 19th were tragic, the events on March 19th were not intentional.
Ladies and gentlemen, she is dangerous. She may look like a little girl. They may have said she's sweet little Carly, but unfortunately we all know that that's not true.
Haunting video from inside a Mississippi home shows a teenage girl just calmly sitting in the kitchen of that house moments after she shot her mother. The lack of emotion from the 14-year-old after doing the unthinkable is chilling. This as she waits for her stepfather to come home to shoot him too. And rather than accept a plea deal, she took her chances with a jury. We're continuing our series of recaps of some of the biggest trials in the country with Mississippi versus Carly Gregg. Welcome to Sidebar, presented by Law&Crime. I'm Jesse Weber. March 19th, 2024 seemed like a fairly normal day in the Smylie household. Mom Ashley Smylie and stepdad Heath Smylie went to work. 14-year-old Carly Gregg, who was in the 10th grade at the school where her mother taught math, went to class. She rode home after school with her mom, who recently learned that Carly was secretly smoking marijuana. So when Ashley went to clean out Carly's stash of vape pens in her room, this is when everything changed. Because Carly ends up getting a gun from under her mom's mattress and shoots her in the face and neck. Video from a camera set up in the kitchen of the home shows Carly coming back trying to hide the pistol behind her back. She's seen texting someone. And that someone, according to investigators, was her stepdad, Heath Smylie. It turns out she was on her mom's phone asking when Heath would be coming home. Investigators believe that Carly was luring her stepfather home to potentially kill him. So Carly ends up shooting Heath in the shoulder as he walks right through the door. He manages to get the gun away from her. She takes off through the backyard. Now, Heath survived his injuries, testified during his stepdaughter's trial. And Carly, talking about a trial, she was charged as an adult with murder, attempted murder, and tampering with evidence. Now, remember when I talked about that plea deal at the beginning? Well, Carly was offered a deal where she would spend 40 years in prison. During a pretrial hearing, Carly, wearing a school uniform, told the judge that she wanted to take this case to trial.
All right, we're here by way of pretrial conference checklist, which means that the defendant has rejected any recommendation from the state. For the record, what was the last recommendation of the state of Mississippi?
Here, the state recommended 40 years in the custody of Mississippi Department of Corrections and agreed to not prosecute counts 2 and 3 of the indictment. Again, there were fines and no contact and things like that.
All right, Ms. Gregg, did you receive that recommendation of 40 years?
Yes, sir.
And it was your choice and your choice alone to reject that recommendation?
Yes, Your Honor.
You know, if she proceeds to trial, count 1, what's the potential sentence?
Life.
If the jury fails to affix the sentence at life, what's the sentencing range?
20 years to 40 years.
All right, and count 2, what's the potential sentence?
Between 20 years and life.
All right. She's 14 years old, so if the jury fails to affix the punishment at life, she's facing 50 years?
Give or take, Your Honor, yes.
Okay. And in count 3, what's she facing?
Another 10 years.
Another 10 years. So the jury will either acquit you, or you'll be facing 2 life sentences, or this court can sentence you up to 93 years. Do you understand that?
Yes, Your Honor.
It's your choice and your choice alone to proceed to trial.
Yes, Your Honor.
Have a seat.
And the problem is now she's facing potentially life in prison. So what happens? Well, the trial does get underway in September of 2024 and focus primarily on Carly's mental health and whether she was experiencing some sort of psychosis when she shot her mom.
Ladies and gentlemen, you'll hear testimony throughout the next few days during this case. You'll hear about some secret life that Carly lived. You'll hear that Carly had a secret boyfriend. You'll hear that Carly had a secret iPod, that she had secret social media accounts that she was using to communicate with people on this iPod when her parents had taken her phone away. You'll hear that she was secretly cutting on her thigh using a knife. You'll hear that she secretly had burner phones her mom and stepdad didn't know about that she was using. You'll hear that she had secret weed vape pens and that she was secretly smoking those vape pens and getting high before going to school at times. Ladies and gentlemen, that's not why we're here, though. We're here because of what she did on March the 19th, 2024.
Hey, thank you so much for joining us on this trial recap, by the way. And I have to thank Upside because it's with their support that helps make episodes like this possible. Now, if you don't know what Upside is, it's awesome. It is a free app that gets you cash back when you buy daily essentials like gas, groceries, food. This is real cash back. It's money that appears in your Upside app that you transfer right into your bank account. Look here. I used Upside to find a gas station near me. I claimed an offer on Upside, paid with my credit card, followed the steps on the app. I got cash back. It is so simple. You can use Upside at all different kinds of places, restaurants, convenience stores. So to find out how much you can earn, you click the link in the description to download Upside or scan the QR code on screen and use our promo code SIDEBAR and you'll get an extra 25 cents back on every gallon on your first tank of gas. Now, according to the prosecution, a friend of Carly's was worried about her and was worried about her marijuana use. So he ends up telling her mom what was going on. And when Carly realized that her mom had discovered her secret, she killed her.
You'll hear that when they get inside the house, it's only their two dogs, Ashley Smylie and Carly Gregg. Immediately, Carly goes and lets the dogs out. You'll hear testimony that Ashley then goes into Carly's room. You'll hear that while Ashley is in her room, that Carly's still outside. At some point, Ashley finds what law enforcement believe to be the 4 boxes that contain vape pens. Testimony will be that we believe she carried them from Carly's room to her bedroom, went back to search in Carly's room. The evidence will show that almost immediately upon Carly coming inside the house, that she walks straight to her parents' bedroom, that she goes straight to her mom's side of the bed and removes a .357 Magnum from under the mattress. We believe the testimony will be that then she concealed that .357 Magnum behind her back. As she walked through the kitchen, she peeks her head around. We believe the testimony will show that she peeks her head around the kitchen to make sure that her mom hasn't come out of her bedroom. We believe the evidence will then show that she walked with that .357 Magnum behind her back, walked in to her own bedroom, and then fired 3 shots into her mother, killing her. We believe the testimony will then be that that very moment after she shot and killed her mother, she then hides that gun back out of the camera, walks back into that kitchen, sits down on a stool with a gun behind her, picks up her mother's cell phone, puts her mom's passcode into the phone. We believe the testimony will be that then she texted her stepdad and said something to the effect of, "When will you be home, honey?" Testimony will be that then she waited for him to respond. "I'll be a little bit longer." She sends him a thumbs up.
Now, there are 2 sides to every story, right? So there's the prosecution's narrative and then there's the defense's narrative. And during the defense's opening statement, Carly actually was seen tearing up several times at the defense table.
This is not a whodunit case. We know who took action on March 19th to bring about the death of Ashley Smylie and the injuries to Heath Smylie. However, this is a why case. Why did it happen? Why did this exceptional child with no history of violence, who was loved by her friends, her teachers, her parents, who had a good home life, who loved her mother, why did she shoot her mom? Why did she shoot at her stepfather? The state would like you to believe the answer to those questions don't matter, but we know better than that. The answers to those questions is why we're here today, and it's what you're here to do. We believe the evidence will show that there were 3 victims on March 19th. Ashley Smylie, Heath Smylie, and Carly Smylie. And Carly Gregg. that they were all three victims. While the events on March 19th were tragic, the events on March 19th were not intentional.
Now let's get into witness testimony. So the first witness called to the stand was 911 dispatcher Kevin Collins, who took the call from Heath Smylie. Remember, Heath was basically trying to get out of there. Heath was distraught. I mean, having just been shot in the shoulder, having found his wife's body, that 911 call was played for the court.
And what was the reason for Mr. Smylie calling 911?
He called because he had been shot. At first he said he had grazed the neck. Once during the middle of the call, he then stated that his wife was also shot dead on the floor, and continued to talk to him until deputies arrived on scene.
Your daughter tried to shoot you? Yeah. Shooting at me. Where is she at? She ran away. How old is she? 14. Where is your wife? She's dead on the floor of my stepdaughter's room. She's on the floor in your stepdaughter's room? What's your wife's name? Ashley Smylie. Ashley Smylie.
So when first responders treated Heath at the scene, the deputies started a search for Carly, who'd run away from the house. Now, she was eventually found on a nearby road and arrested. The prosecution called Heath Smylie to the stand to talk about what happened to him that day.
Tell the ladies and gentlemen, Heath, and I know it's probably difficult, you can take as much time as you need. Tell the ladies and gentlemen exactly what you remember about when you came home on March the 19th, 2024.
Everything seemed pretty normal, and I came on in, and when I opened the door to the kitchen there, gun went off in my face before the door was, I don't know, 3 or 4 inches wide open, and everything kind of went pretty fast from there. It was a blur. Just gun flash in my face, and then went off 2 more times, but my hand was on the gun after the first shot, and I twisted it from her.
Who was pointing that gun at you?
It was Carly.
Who pulled the trigger when you opened the door?
The first one I know was Carly. After that, my hand was on the gun too, and I know I had a scratch on my thumb and all. I very well could have hit it, I know, that third time.
How close, Heath, was that gun to your face when that went off?
Maybe a foot.
Did you ever get struck by a bullet?
Yes, one of them kind of grazed right through this muscle up here.
Do you remember telling anybody that you were in such shock that you didn't even try to shoot Carly back or anything like that?
No, it was very evident to me immediately that something was very, very off with Carly. The way she was screaming, the way she looked, she was moving so fast.
And he gave a little bit of backstory. So he told the jury that he and Ashley had married in the summer of 2020. He testified that he and Carly had a good relationship, but that her mood and her behavior had changed dramatically in the months before she killed Ashley. She'd allegedly started acting out, as any teenager might, but her behavior became especially concerning when her parents discovered she had been cutting herself on her thighs. She was seeing a therapist, went through some medication changes to try to treat her anxiety and depression. A child psychiatrist would later testify that Carly has bipolar II disorder and that she didn't follow the right protocol when switching from one medication to another not long before the shooting, which may have caused these wild mood swings. And one of the most revealing items that was submitted into evidence was a video recording from inside the home. I talked about this. This camera in the kitchen showed Carly and Ashley arriving home from school. Everything looks pretty normal. She sets her backpack down, plays with the dogs, eventually going outside with them. But investigators say at this point, Ashley was in Carly's room removing the boxes that are full of the vape pens. So after being outside for around 5 minutes or so, Carly comes back inside, walks calmly to the staircase, and investigators say she got her mother's handgun from under the mattress in the master bedroom and then proceeded to shoot her mom in the face and neck. And the kitchen camera actually caught the chilling audio of this shooting. After that, Carly immediately comes back, holding her arm awkwardly behind her back because investigators say she was trying to hide the gun from the camera. She picks up her mother's phone, which has been left on the kitchen counter, and then texted her stepfather, pretending to be Ashley. So Heath ends up responding to a text asking when he would be home, saying he'd be leaving work soon. And prosecutors say at this point, Carly actually invited a friend over to see her mother's dead body. She's also accused of taking down the kitchen camera, hiding it in the back of the refrigerator behind some water bottles. That's where the tampering with evidence charge comes in. And by the way, back to that friend, she says she was in the backyard when Carly started shooting at her stepfather and that she and Carly just took off in different directions. And as I mentioned, a Rankin County Sheriff's deputy ended up finding Carly.
So I drove out there to assist. I came from the interstate. Whenever the call came out, I didn't know the full details of it, but I knew what we were doing. I came out there to assist look for her. When I came to look for her, I came on Farmington Boulevard out there. I think it was around 5 o'clock traffic, 5:30. I can't remember the exact time. When I was coming down Farmington Boulevard, there was traffic in front of me, traffic behind me because it's a big neighborhood. I looked to my right. I saw her standing there, a female. That's what I knew we were looking for. I immediately put the car in park. I hopped out. I said, "Are you involved in this incident that happened in this neighborhood?" She goes, "Yes, sir, I am. Is my stepdad okay?" And I said, "I can't talk to you about that." I put her in handcuffs, put her in my car, and we began to go to the scene.
Now, going back to the defense, they really focused on Carly's mental health and what various experts had to say about Carly's mental health. And that included Dr. Andrew Clark, the psychiatrist for adolescents and children. He studied Carly's medical records, met with her after arrest, and he says he believed that Carly had been suffering from mental illness for years that may have been triggered by several traumatic events, including the death of a younger sibling from an illness and the divorce of her parents. She was diagnosed with major depressive disorder at the beginning of 2024.
Based on your evaluation, was there a period of time in which Carly's mental health issues began to be more significant?
Yes.
Can you tell us about that?
So beginning from around the age of 9 or so, what Carly reported was that she began to feel depressed, that the auditory hallucinations, meaning that she was hearing voices, that those continued, that these experiences of feeling like the world wasn't real continued. And then somewhere between the ages of 9 and 11, the depression continued, and she then began to cut herself. And as I understand it, she'd been cutting herself for about 2 years, so starting around the age of 12, that she would, on a fairly regular basis, make superficial cuts on her thighs as a way to help manage her anxiety and distress.
And Clark read to the court from Carly's journal, focusing on what she wrote just a week before the shootings.
So writing on March 12th, Tuesday, she writes, "I think I had a psychotic break earlier. The whole ordeal was quite silly. I actually spoke with one of the voices in my head. Well, I didn't hear them until earlier today, but I only do then. My particular friend and I were practically screaming, bloodthirstily and ravenously. Thank God, physical confrontation was not, and I think it's fruitively, possible. I sound crazy. In the period of time up until March 12th, Carly reported that her mood was flat, that she was zombie, that she was still quite depressed, she was still cutting. She also reported that the voices were getting worse, that they were becoming more urgent, more prominent, and she was beginning to worry that they were taking over for her. Now, she told me that the only thing the voices said to her were things that were kind of elitist, like you're better than those people. Like that's the only thing she told me they said. So her mood is poor, the voices are getting worse, her sleep continues to be bad, and she's smoking marijuana on 2 or 3 times a week. She also reported that she had a fair amount of anxiety during this time as well.
What, if any, other hypothesis did you rule out?
So I think 2 other ones that I ruled out in particular. One is that Carly may have just panicked, right? That she's emotionally fragile. This is a big deal that her mother finding out. That in the moment, and she's a teenager, right? In the moment she just panicked and did something heedless. The problem I have with that, I mean, one problem is, when I saw the video of the kitchen at 4:10 in the afternoon, you hear the shot, she comes in, she looks to me to be cool and collected and unemotional. I would have expected, had she panicked, that she would be quite agitated and emotionally aroused. I didn't see that at all. And then I see her engaged in this plan to shoot her stepfather, which makes no sense to me. If she had panicked and done this with her mother, why in the world, I mean, even that is, somewhat incomprehensible. But why in the world would she then plan an hour later to shoot her stepfather? That makes no sense to me. Why would she invite friends over to the house? So to me, her emotional flatness in particular, and the sort of the continuation of the plan just didn't make any sense. The other hypothesis that I considered is that she's callous, right? That for some reason she had it in for her mother and thought her mother deserved it, right? She just decided she was going to do this. The problem I have with that is that so much of what she did seems senseless. That both, like taking down the video camera and putting it in the refrigerator makes no sense to me. That planning to shoot her father, her stepfather, makes no sense. That having friends come over makes no sense. So to me, and that goes against everything that I know about who Carly is. Right? There's nothing in her past history that would indicate that she has the capability of doing something like that in such a callous way. So those are the 2 other hypotheses. And so I put this together, acknowledging that it's not perfect, right? It's a hard situation, and not everything lines up. But I'll say that the whole situation is sort of perplexing and difficult. For me, this is the hypothesis that best fits the information that I have. And I think Carly has a much more severe psychiatric illness than anybody realized, and that she was able to acknowledge, or even that she's able to acknowledge today. And that combined with her history of dissociation sort of created this terrible situation.
But the prosecution also called expert witnesses to the stand to rebut the suggestion that Carly was hearing voices or suffering from psychosis. Olivia Lieber, this psychiatric nurse practitioner, she saw Carly at a mental health clinic.
At any point during that evaluation with Ms. Gregg, did she report that she was hearing voices?
No.
In fact, I think the very last line you said, again, she denies suicidal ideations, that she denied homicidal ideations. Is that right?
Right.
And that she denied AVH,
auditory visual hallucinations.
Well, after 4 days of testimony, the prosecution and the defense presented their closing arguments to the jury. And the state played the video of Carly walking back inside with the dogs for the jury again, showing her walking upstairs before the gunshots and the screaming are ultimately heard.
Ladies and gentlemen, there's no doubt that Carly Madison Gregg is the one who killed her mom, Ashley Smylie. There's no doubt that she attempted to kill Smylie when she aimed the gun right at his head and shot and hit him in the shoulder. And there's no doubt that she's the one who hid the camera, thus tampering with evidence in the refrigerator. And we would ask you that you go back there and you find her guilty of all three, because she was not insane at the time that this happened. She knew exactly what she was doing, and she knew the difference between right and wrong.
But the defense said this case is more complicated than that.
The truth is rarely pure and never simple. It's what Oscar Wilde said. And while she was having a state of psychosis and an episode of acute stress on March 19th, she lost herself in what was the perfect storm. I am asking you, for those reasons, to please find Carly Gregg not guilty by reason of insanity and finally quell this storm for Carly and her family. No one will understand this case, and no one has heard this case the way that you have. And passing judgment on another person is a heavy burden to bear, and I'm sorry that it falls on you. But please consider what is at stake in this case for this child and this family before you rush to judgment and render your verdict. Look at those documents, consider the testimony. Search your heart for what you know about this child from the picture painted by her of all the people that knew her best. And you tell me, what was the intent? You tell me why someone who intended and had planned to murder someone wouldn't have taken the camera she knew was in the kitchen and was easy to see down before she did anything, especially when she was a genius. I mean, that's not the actions of a diabolical, evil genius, leaving camera footage up for everyone to see, crawling through a sewer instead of just running away, calling friends for help, friends who could later testify about what happened. Again, I ask you to search your hearts and remember the undisputed truths in this case.
And when the verdict officially came down, Carly Gregg appeared shocked.
Ms. Gregg, please rise and come to the podium, along with your attorneys. All right, the verdicts appear to be in proper form. Verdict of the jury is count one. We, the jury, find the defendant, Carly Madison Gregg, guilty of first-degree murder as charged in the indictment. Count two. We, the jury, find the defendant, Carly Madison Gregg, guilty of attempted murder as charged in the indictment. Count three. We, the jury, find the defendant, Carly Madison Gregg, guilty of tampering with evidence as charged in the indictment. Please be seated, Ms. Gregg.
And Carly Gregg was sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole. Remember that plea deal? Could have gotten 40 years. Her attorneys recently appealed the verdict, though, demanding a new trial. They said that some of the witnesses who supported Carly were improperly excluded from testifying at the trial. They also cited an interview that Carly's biological father did with a local news station where he talked about Carly hearing voices as a young child. However, the judge determined that that testimony likely wouldn't have changed anything and denied the motion for a new trial. So for now, Carly Gregg is being housed at the Youthful Offender Facility in Pearl, Mississippi. That's all we have for you right now here on Sidebar. Everybody, thank you so much for joining us. As always, please subscribe on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, YouTube, wherever you get your podcasts. I'm Jesse Weber. I'll speak to you next time.